Over the years, history has revealed many monstrous individuals who have been responsible for horrific actions. One such individual is the psychopathic Nazi doctor Josef Mengele. Also known as the Angel of Death, Mengele is considered by many as the embodiment of evil itself. In today's video, we'll be talking about who exactly was Josef Mengele and some of his most horrific actions. This video contains mention of violence, torture, and human experimentation. Proceed at your own caution, as this video isn't for those who are light of heart. Dr. Josef Mengele was born on March 16, 1911 in Gunberg, Bavaria, Germany. He also had two younger brothers called Karl and Alois. According to reports, his father owned a company called Firma Karl Mengele & Son. However, unsurprisingly, little else is known about Mengele's early childhood life. Dr. Mengele would grow up to study not one, but two disciplines at university. From the University of Munich, he took a degree in philosophy. According to reports, Mengele was heavily influenced by Alfred Rosenberg, who was a major influence behind the Nazi ideology, including the various theories of racial superiority. Later, Mengele also obtained a degree in medicine from the Goethe University in Frankfurt. 5 years later, the German finished his PhD in physical anthropology. Physical anthropology is a branch of anthropology that centers around the origin, evolution, and diversity of people. It is concerned mainly with how the human body evolves over time, how we're physically different from each other, what this means for humanity as a whole, while also exploring the biological base of human behavior. A large chunk of the earlier works of physical anthropology has racist overtones, and you'll see how this influenced much of Mengele's actions later on. In 1937, Mengele studied under some of Germany's leading experts on twins when he joined the Institute for Hereditary Biology and Racial Hygiene. After this, Mengele joined the Nazi Party and the Schutzstaffel, most commonly referred to as the SS. He was drafted into the army and worked as a medical expert. But this doesn't mean that he remained in the background. In fact, Mengele did see a lot of action on the Eastern Front. He even received the Iron Cross First Class for rescuing two German soldiers from a burning tank. Following a serious injury, Mengele was sent to work at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Anthropology, Human Genetics, and Eugenics. He was later sent to work at Auschwitz, where he earned his reputation of being the Angel of Death. Dr. Mengele's main task was to look at the individuals sent there and decide if they were fit to work or not. If these individuals weren't deemed good enough for work, they were sent for execution in the gas chamber. Not all those selected for the gas chamber were injured or differently abled. These individuals also comprised old people, pregnant women, and even healthy children. Those who worked with Mengele on the selection committee were heavily disturbed by his job. According to some reports, Mengele took great pleasure in looking up and down his visitors. Some even stated that he'd be whistling different songs while he made his decision. When Mengele wasn't busy sending people off to their doom in the gas chamber, he had other tasks that kept him busy. One of these tasks included testing a cyanide-based gas pesticide called Zyklon B, which had the ability to kill people. He also worked on trying to find the cure for a gangrenous bacterial disease called Noma that had affected one of the camps. We should clarify that Mengele's attempts to find the cure were anything but ethical. Mengele would round up affected children, get them killed, and then would send their body parts to university labs for further research to be conducted. One of his other tasks was to find a way of helping German soldiers survive the freezing cold weather. Many soldiers often froze to death on the battlefield, especially in Russia. Now, how did he do this? Well, in a very Mengele fashion, he would freeze prisoners in camp just to see which types of bodies could manage better in the cold. This allowed him to figure out what soldiers would be able to survive in the extreme weather. What of the individuals who died of the cold? Well, Mengele, being the experimenter he was, would try to use various techniques to try and bring the frozen prisoners back to life. Mengele's main interest lied in genetics and twins. If you were to search up his name on Google, you'd find some of his experiments regarding genetics and eye color at the top of the page. According to reports, the aim of Mengele's experiments was to refine the master race. Do you see the influence of physical anthropology yet? If not, you sure will by the time we conclude this video. One of his experiments involved injecting dye into the human eye to see if it would change color. Now, not only was this extremely painful, but many children would go blind after Mengele's experiment. Regardless of the outcomes of the experiments, Mengele would kill the children anyway and collect their eyes. Sounds straight out of a work of fiction, doesn't it? Unfortunately, all of this is very much true. According to a report by a writer who visited the gypsy camp in Birkenau in 1943, there were samples of eyes lining a wooden table. Each sample was labeled with a number and a letter. The report described the eyes ranging from very pale yellow to bright blue, green, and violet. The main reason behind these experiments was to see how eye color was passed down to generations. As you may have already known, the Germans favored blue eyes. As mentioned earlier, Mengele was really interested in twins, and he was able to find quite a few of them amongst the people that were sent to the camp at Auschwitz. He was interested in aberration when twins had two different eye colors. Many believe that his obsession with twins was to help improve the German race by trying to create a way for Germans to have more twins, more specifically, racially superior twins. The strangest thing about Mengele was that upon first meeting the man, he seemed to be quite pleasant to be around. According to reports, many people really liked Mengele, stating that he was always smiling and quite charming to be around. A survivor even stated that Mengele was an attractive man with a perennial little smile which showcased a gap between his front teeth. The survivor stated that Mengele spoke with them in a very polite tone, giving the impression that he was interested in knowing more about them. Not many expected the charming smile and courteous behavior to be just a facade that hid a horrific, murderous personality. Doesn't this sound like a textbook definition of a manipulative psychopath? Once the war ended, Mengele was on the run, and even worked as a farmhand for a limited time. He eventually acquired a visa under an alias and escaped to Argentina. He worked as a carpenter, but according to later reports by the Argentine government, he was also illegally working as a doctor. He eventually died in a swimming pool from a stroke in Brazil in 1976. In addition, it seemed that he never repented his actions and remained a racist. This information was acquired from 86 letters that were released from a Sao Paulo police archive. In some letters, he stated that he felt no regret taking away unworthy lives. Talk about a horrific monster. What are your thoughts on Mengele and his horrific actions? Let us know in the comments below.